Hello, I'm Thomas, and this is the KAANP, the Knoxville Area Artists Networking Platform. And here we talk to artists about themselves, the art they make, and where they make it, kinda. So yeah, stick around, give us a listen. Enjoy the show. I'm here with Jake Mincey today. How you doing, Jake?
So far, so good. How about you?
Oh man, not bad. Had a half day of actual work today, and now I'm off doing the fun stuff, talking to people with a microphone.
Yay!
Yeah, right. So what do you do in Knoxville, art-wise?
Art-wise, I'm currently a tattooer. Been doing this for like right at 11 years. That's really art-wise. That's the only thing I have going in here. But I have some ideas that I've been wanting to chase. But the world being plagued and whatnot, it kind of got in the way. So
A lot of things.
things are on back burners. But we'll see what happens.
Well, what other mediums have you used?
I dabble in paints and stuff, mostly acrylics. I do drawings. I've done pencil color stuff. I did color pencil for a long time, but prior to that, as far as I can remember back, most of my childhood with art and stuff was mostly ink and pen, and it was all black and white. I never really dabbled in the color. It wasn't until I got into like high school and I had this really cool art teacher who, for whatever reason, saw this broke kid who was in trouble all the time and was like, "You got talent, and I want to make you see that." And she would always force me into doing things that I wouldn't normally take part in, you know? And
push your boundaries for you.
Yeah. And she would like take it as far. I believe her name was Miss Mosier. Super awesome woman, and she was a professional artist before she got into teaching, and she had been doing like these realism paintings and stuff, and then she got carpal tunnel, and so she just spent the rest of her career teaching kids. So point being was like she would tell me things like, well, if you're going to give me a hard time doing this colored pencil piece because you're so stuck in this chromatic, art style, then I'll just give you an F. And I was like,
she called you out on it, huh?
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, you're going to give me an F? And
I guess I better try these damn colored
and
pencils.
she would just force me into this stuff, and she exposed me to a lot of stuff too. I can't thank her enough. Definitely a big force behind how I look at things, and always trying to premeditate things and know the ins and outs before you just go and do it.
Forethought's great.
Yeah, for sure, man. Very methodical. But right now I've been doing a lot of like acrylic paint stuff. And I just like doing it just because I've found a way where I can layer and layer and layer. As long as the canvas or the paper doesn't give out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can about do anything. I tend to use this technique called glazing a lot, where you just find this like happy compromise of how thin you like the paint to be, and then you just keep layering it. And it takes a long time. And a lot of people get frustrated because they don't see immediate results,
Yeah.
But that's how a lot of the dudes back in the day, mid-century type art and stuff was created. They get all these crazy effects, these transparencies, and make things look shiny and glossy and stuff by just doing this glazing technique where they just layer and layer and layer and layer. And you get a really cool effect out of it, and I really dig it, so I haven't really turned away from it since I started doing it. It's pretty awesome. So.
It's enough fun to keep your attention.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's another thing. I'm really bad about like if I start a project and it's not like something that's really, really grabbing my attention and keeping me like involved, I won't forget about it. and I won't trash it, but I'll stick it to the side, and it'll sit there sometimes for like a couple months or several years.
Just give it the old side eye.
Yeah, yeah. It's just haunting me every day. Like, hey, remember me? You abandoned me. So, I mean, but it is what it is, you know.
You got. I mean, if you're have any sort of regular creative output, one of them just like at least one of them just falls behind.
Oh
at
yeah,
some point.
totally, always. I mean, it's one of those things. You're one person, and anybody that's creative can testify to this. You have so many thoughts running through your head on a regular basis, and they're all projected from usually personal experiences. You know what I mean? Whether it be something that directly affects you or something you witnessed. You know. Which is good though. That's a big thing for me. If you're going to make art, you need to try and derive some kind of emotion. If you're not pulling emotion out of somebody when they look at your art, then what's the point? You know, whether that be happiness, joy, sadness, or empathy, or just humanity.
Conveying something and then having it land is
because exactly, man. Because if, in my opinion, if you're going to do art, you need to do that. Because if you don't, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's just, it looks cool, maybe, but at the end of the day, it has no, people can't relate to it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is like, people are going to be able to relate to art in all its many forms, no matter what you do, whether it's music, food, dance, you're a musician, whatever. If you're not trying to evoke these emotions and make people connect with your work, then, I mean, you'll never really be able to get the exposure you need, no matter if that's on a big stage or even like just a local stage, you know. But I'm sure there's somebody out there just winging it and half-assing it, and they're doing just fine.
Just fine,
They're probably listening to this now and going, fuck that guy.
Whatever. I just do this shit because it's fun and I get 6 figures.
I just throw paint at this shit, and
I love that is some people's workflow. And you ask them about it, and they're like, "No, I just really just throw paint at shit." And you're like, "Really? That's it?" And they're just like, "Yeah."
I remember when I was probably about 10 years old. I don't know if Nick remembers this or not. We went on a field trip. We were going to Highland Park, and they took us to the Knoxville Museum, and there was, just so happened, there was an MC Escher viewing. At that point, I'd never realized how much I'd seen of that guy's work.
Because it's out there.
It's everywhere, dude. And he's one of those artists, man. People may not know him as a household name, and they may not have his art on the walls in every room.
But they've seen it somewhere.
But they've seen it, especially if you grew up watching things like Looney Tunes and like trippy movies, especially like Stanley Kubrick stuff. He tends to pull a lot from that weird trippy side of Escher. And man, I remember seeing that stuff and actually seeing the real work. Because that's the other thing, is like when you look at a lot of these artists' work in books and magazines and stuff, and even video, you don't realize that some of them are on this grand scale.
Yeah, so huge.
Yeah, like his famous, I forget what it's called, but it's the pattern where the birds turn into fishes and the fishes turn into planes, and then it's like a little city and all that. That thing's huge, man. It's monstrous. I mean, these canvases are like a good 8 foot tall.
And we only see them on a screen or, in a picture.
So it makes it harder to appreciate.
Yeah.
But for me, when I saw it, it just blew my mind, man. It made me rethink how I approached art, how I did art, how I viewed it, how I described it and explained it to other people. Escher's just one of those dudes, man, that just really, really... it goes back to the emotion thing. Like, he really touched me emotionally and artistically enough that, I mean...
You just flipped your script.
Yeah. I mean, I may not do the same kind of stuff that he does, but it's enough to make me, like, really appreciate and value what he's done. So hopefully I can return the favor,
Yeah. So now that we're on the topic of influences,
Right.
who else influences you, whether it's to that degree or not, and local or not? Like,
Right.
do you have
There
some
are
big influences?
there are some local guys, especially with tattooing. Man, I got really lucky in tattooing. I mean, it's a really hard business to get into and be whatever you want to call successful. Um, there's a lot of cats in the game that are very cutthroat and they don't care to bury whoever, whether you're new or old at it. And I just got really lucky, man. I ran into a lot of people that really believed in me and really gave two shits about where I was
Isn't that
going.
funny when that happens?
Yeah, yeah, because I would talk to them and be like, how'd your apprenticeship go? Or, what are some of the things you had to deal with? And they'd be like, oh, bro.
Let me tell you.
Sit down. You're going to want to grab a cold one and hang on to your chair, And it's like, oh, shit. But, for instance, one of my really good friends, and I haven't talked to him in a while since all this has been going on, but Sean Harris, he used to tattoo in Athens. I'm not sure what he's got going on now, but that dude, man, from the day I met him, we were cool. And that guy, he comes from an extremely artistic family. His grandpa was a realist, a realism and what's the word? Impressionist artist. Back in like the 30s and 20s. I mean, he wasn't like any world-renowned go-to guy, but if you ever saw his stuff, you'd be blown away by it. He did a lot of still life and things like that. And Sean's definitely got that flowing in his blood. I mean, he's one of those dudes where you just watch art pour out of his body, and you're like, where the hell does this come from?
How? Why? How?
And he's so accustomed to it and so okay with it happening, I guess because it's happened to him his whole life.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah, he's just like, whatever, man. Like, it's real easy. You just put a line here and a swoop of this and a little blend there. And I'm like, if you say so, dude. Like,
right, buddy, right.
But he's a really cool dude, very humble, a badass artist. There was another dude when I got into tattooing, Nate Pooler. He owns his own shop in one of the Carolinas. I don't want to say which one and give somebody the wrong information. But that guy was another dude that came from a different walk of life, and definitely shined some light onto things that I never really thought about, and gave me a different perspective, and showed me that, like, at the end of the day, we're all comrades in this game we call art.
Right.
You know what I mean?
'Cause it's just a unified front of expression.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's subjective.
Yeah.
And people forget that, and it's very opinionated. You may like Van Gogh or something like that, where I'm kind of like, it's cool, but it's not my thing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't hang it on the wall, but I'd totally go check it out. I admire it for what it is. But he definitely showed me that. I mean, like I said, he came from a different walk of life, and he guided me in some directions, and was real cool about, just like Sean, showing me these little tips and tricks. But man, as far as stuff outside tattooing, I could go on for days about people that have inspired me, especially like comic book artists and graphic artists. Bernie Wrightson. If you don't know who that is, go check that guy out, because that is the man. He did this amazing interpretation of Frankenstein, the Mary Shelley novel, and he made these like 11 by 16s, I think, or bigger. And even though he did it all by hand, they look like the old school woodblock prints.
Oh, nice.
And he did it all with like a hatching technique. And so he made every freaking line the right length and made them all go the same direction. And it was just insane, man. But he's done that his whole career. He's done all kinds of stuff and had his hands in everything. He helped design the creatures for the Ghostbusters. Dude, that guy's just insanely good. And then, of course, like people like Todd McFarlane and stuff like that.
Yeah, Venom.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, just revolutionize things.
Yeah.
Put a twist on things that people never really thought about.
Yeah.
And went against the grain. That's the thing, is like I seem to find myself attracted to these artists that are told their whole lives like, oh, well, you can't do that. Well, why? Because it's not traditional.
It's not how we do things.
Yeah, it's not traditional. It just goes against everything we believe. Well, if one person sees it and it really digs it, whether they made it or not, I promise you there's at least 20 to 50 other people who are going to be like, that's fucking rad, man.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that's the thing people forget all the time, especially with art and all its many forms, is like, don't get down when somebody tells you, I'm not really feeling what you did there. You know what I mean? That's their opinion. That's one person.
Yeah, the next person that walks up, or the third person that walks up, whoever.
Yeah, they may look at your art and without even asking you any questions on it as far as inspiration or what you used, and they may just throw a number at you and be like, I got $300 in my pocket. Can I get that?
Yeah.
Or what's your price on it? Because I'm getting it today.
Right?
You know? And that's the thing. It's unfortunate that we live in a world where we're kind of pushed around and taught to like always be hesitant and kind of be wary and this kind of thing. And it's like, man, you just got to be bold.
Yeah, sometimes.
And life's like skydiving, man. You got to jump. You can either jump or you can stand around in the plane and watch all your opportunities go by, or watch somebody else take all your opportunities and then land. And they're in the spot where you wanted to be, So you got to be smart about it. You got to kind of have a plan. You can't just always go for it. Sometimes you can, but that's the thing. If more people had that mentality, I feel like the world would be far more advanced in so many departments. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid tattooer. I'm the scum of the earth.
Hey, don't feel bad. I'm just a professional sticker, so,
Well, there you go, man.
See?
We're in this together.
So now that we're talking about like a little bit of ideology behind it, like what do you have a workflow, or do you just go into stuff? If you have a workflow, what's it look like?
I do. And so a lot of the things I do nowadays to especially these younger kids and younger people.
Kids these days.
Yeah, right? Get off my lawn. They would probably watch me and be like, look at this old fuck. Like, why is he doing all that by hand? Like, you could just go on here and click this and click that and mesh this together, And that's cool, whatever, whatever works for you. But when I was growing up, I never had a whole lot of money. We weren't broke. My parents did everything they could to, give us a good life and opportunities and stuff like that. But it wasn't like we had computers and tablets. Dude, my dad didn't get us a computer until like 1999. Like Gateway had already been around selling bullshit computers to people for a couple years,
Yeah.
I was like one of the last people at my school that got a computer at home.
Yeah,
I remember going to school and being like, man, this is so cool, the fucking internet. And they were like
56K modems rock.
Yeah, Windows 95.
Yeah, exactly.
And these kids would just look at me and be like, what a fucking loser. Like, that was so 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I was kind of in that boat too.
Yeah, and so that affected my process a lot, and I went towards a lot of ways that just clicked with me. Like I would just look at things and be like, oh, this would totally work if I tried to do this. But there was a lot of things where I would see these other artists get these different effects, and I would have to go out of my way to like dig deep and back then, if you didn't have internet access, or, well, at the
Hit the
time,
library.
internet wasn't a big deal.
Right.
It was hard to get. Dial up and crap, you spend 3 hours and like, oh, I found the process that I need to do, and then Dad comes in and picks up the phone to order a fucking pizza and it cuts you off. It's
There
like,
you go.
no.
Yeah. It's into the world at that point.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like, do you realize how long I waited for this?
I sat here and stared at this screen for 3 hours.
But yeah, so some of the things I do is obviously, like most artists, I conjure up the idea, the thought, and then at that point I can kind of play around with, like, what direction do I want this to be? Do I want this to be political art? Do I want this to be religious? Do I want this to be personal? And then once I kind of determine that, I'll sit down, sketch out kind of what I need. If it's something that I'm not familiar with, because I'm a big believer, like, just because you do art doesn't mean you can draw or paint everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's a big misconception with a lot of people.
You can try to do anything.
Yeah, you can totally try. But, I mean, if you've spent 30 years making cartoony, designs or something like that, and now you're like, oh, I'm going to do a portrait of Grandma, and the portrait of Grandma looks like, Uncle Todd in drag. Well, that's not Grandma. You know what I mean? Like,
It's not.
So yeah, and if I needed reference material, as far as reference stuff goes, man, I'm real bad about taking pictures of all kinds of random stuff. Be driving down the road and see a billboard and see a design and click, got it. That would be a great pose or a great idea for what I'm trying to elaborate on. And then I'll take those, get those together. Once I kind of get my design laid out the way I want, sketched out and everything, usually I'll take a couple pieces of tracing paper and just keep laying them over the top of each other and just keep building it up, try different ideas. And this way, with the tracing paper, which a lot of comic book artists do this, and a lot of tattooers do this too. So basically, you create like a flip book with your tracing paper. So if you're like, oh man, that idea sucked, you can just pull the tracing paper up and you can see what you originally had, and you've got these layers. It's like Photoshop 0.0001,
right. The tangible history palette.
Yeah. It's in the palm of your hand. And then I'll figure that out and get it where I need it, and then usually I'll print out a clean version of it, or I'll just redraw it into a cleaner version. And if it's like paper that I'm working on, like water paper or something that I know I can put the trace board under and see through it, I'll just tape it to the back, get it positioned however I need, tape it to it, and then just draw or paint right over the top of it on the opposite side. But nowadays, since all these computers and stuff and crazy programs like Photoshop and Procreate and stuff like that, sometimes it is easier to just find reference material and just straight pull it and then kind of combine it all the way you kind of want it or close to it, and then print that out, flip it over, draw it out the way you need it, and then you have your reference right there. Which I know some people are going to hear this and be like, you fucking tracer, you're not an artist. But the thing is, it's one thing to straight rip something versus...
And then the likeness of the thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's another misconception people have too. Like, the old masters of art, they all had little gimmicks and tricks like that. They all did that. There's not much you could say to convince me, to make me believe like Da Vinci just woke up one day and was like, I'm going to draw realistic fucking heads of everybody and just nail it every time. Bullshit.
Didn't happen.
That dude put in his time. He put in the work, I guarantee it.
There's all kinds of books we ain't found with all his screwed up drawings.
Yeah, somewhere somebody's got a fucking old raggedy ass journal of like doodles and squiggles that he was like, isn't this great? And they were like, oh yeah, that's fucking awesome, dude. This guy's out of his fucking mind.
Go back to work.
So yeah, and I'll usually do it like that. Sometimes I'll get brave and just throw pen and pencil to paper and just whatever happens.
And wing it.
Yeah. Usually when that happens, I tend to do this weird thing where I go in autopilot. Like, I just clear my mind, and and just let my hand, like my hand becomes my brain. And it kind of does its own thing, and whatever happens, happens.
I like how you put that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's flow state, Zen mode. People call it.
Yeah.
So how healthy is it for you to be able to do that, knowing how you can access it, like the practice of art, doing that? How does that help you?
Dude, to be honest with you, sometimes it is very therapeutic. It is very relieving. It's stress that's subconsciously been built up, and I've released it, whether I realize it right then or not.
Right.
Because, like I said, it's just autopilot, man. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, we could do it right now, and, we might make something, like, really cool. We might just make a bunch of random doodles and stuff. It just depends. But you do learn from it, because what happens with that practice, if you do it enough, you subconsciously start to memorize movements. And with art, that's important, because once you get to a point where, like we'll say something basic, everybody could create the illusion of a skull, but to make it look cool and look unique and more skull-like, it takes a little study. You know what I mean? You got to do it a couple hundred times before you really grasp, all the ins and outs of the anatomy. But once you do that, without hesitation, on the fly, you'll just be able to nail it. Somebody will say, "Hey, make a skull." Okay, cool. Well, I'll grit it out, the old school egg shape, and then you put the line down the middle to equal out the face and everything, and then just kind of doodle it in. And you learn a lot from it. And it also teaches you, too, to not be so scared to just try stuff. Because if you're just going into that autopilot mode and laying it out, you're going to stumble across things that really, really change how you create. But you're also going to have some times where you notice mistakes that happen in your work all the time that you weren't observant of or didn't realize before, and now you can correct that and make it better, So it's definitely a good exercise if you've never done it. It's weird at first.
Well, it's some people in their workflow. I can get to that flow state in my workflow sometimes. Some people can, some people can't. I like figuring out when people get into that state of mind via their workflow.
Oh, yeah.
Because it tells you more about the brain behind the piece, I guess, because I understand that is an extremely healthy practice for a person, regardless of how you get it.
Oh, yeah.
Like for my example, I draw, and we that's the thing that we both do, and then I'll ride a longboard, or sometimes driving on the interstate. Not that, you're absently minded going 70 miles an hour. It's just that you're in the moment, and everything that's happening around you, you're aware of, and it's action and reaction.
Yeah, you find that moment where you're just here.
Yeah,
you're not upset
you're just
about
being.
it. Yeah, you're just in a state of being. That's a great way to explain that. And there's nothing wrong with that,
Oh, nothing. And I feel like when people know that they can access that via their workflow and use that as an outlet for their own, for their own betterment of self, I guess.
Yeah. Whatever that may be.
Yeah, whatever it may be. I feel like that's a good thing more people should know, and through art is one of those ways that I like to explore that part of myself.
I totally agree, 100%.
And I like to find if other people also do that.
Yeah.
And everybody's workflow is different. So when you get into talking about somebody's workflow, they either do it or not, or when they do it, or how they do it because they know how they like to get there.
Yeah.
So it's just all the context around that item inside of a workflow is really interesting to me.
For sure. And I let a lot of things that not just of interest influence me too. I'm not afraid to let things outside my life or even within my life that directly affect me influence my art either. That goes back to that emotion thing. If you're feeling one way, I promise you're not alone.
Yeah.
That's a big misconception with a lot of people too, especially artists, because we tend to be socially awkward. Even before all this mess, we tend to be loners and that kind of thing. We usually don't come from great lives, and so we beat ourselves up a lot. But I promise you, no matter what's going on in your life, you're not alone. All you got to do is reach out, and somebody will grab your hand and show you.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with art. I can't name how many times, with art, physical art, paintings and drawings and stuff like that I've saw, and like I had to take a moment and step away from it because it touched me in a way where I was like, fuck, like.
That's what that's like.
Yeah, I know exactly how that person feels. I'm living that shit. And it kind of gives you a different outlook on it, Same thing with music. Music's another art form. It's always been there for me, always saved me. It's influenced my art in general.
Do you play any instruments?
I do.
What do you play?
Oh, I play all kinds of stuff, man.
Oh, what? I didn't know this.
Yeah, play bass. I can play guitar. Not a very good piano player. I know a few scales that sound really cool, but until you know what they are, you're like, oh, what a fucking phony. Play a little bit of banjo. It's been forever since I played it, so don't challenge me. I can play a little bit on mandolin. My mom's side of the family were way more artistic than my dad's side. My dad's side of the family were just like hard-working farmers, and that's all they knew. That's all they did, and they just taught their kids to be that way and taught their kids good morals and values. And
so what are you doing being a tattoo artist?
Dude, honestly, that's a great story. It's a great story. And this sounds terrible, but I never wanted to be in tattooing. It wasn't that I was against it or hated it. I just never had an urge. I always wanted to go to like art school. My dad was real big about pushing me to do that because he dropped out of school in the 8th grade. His education stopped there. And he had to do that because he had to help his mom and dad with their farm. And there was like, I think 6 or 7 kids. I think he's got something like that in siblings. Most of them have passed on now, but yeah, and so he was always big about like put in the time. You got to make sacrifices, and then you get to that goal, and you'll love it and you'll cherish it more. You won't just piss it away.
Right, because you worked for it. You put
exactly,
the time in.
Exactly. And so when I got into high school and I was a senior, I'd already made it up in my mind. I was like, I'm going to do something with art. One way or another, it's going to happen. Ideally, I wanted to get into comic book industries and things like that, but when I started looking into art schools and technical schools and stuff like that, because I hit up a few colleges, and I just didn't like the idea of like, okay, well, you're going to take 20 classes that have nothing to fucking do with art.
Right,
You'll take one art class.
Yeah, that's your one elective this semester.
Yeah, and we're going to charge the shit out of you for it. And it was like, well,
right.
How's that make any fucking sense? That's like buying a brand new car, and they take you out to the back lot, and it has no tires, and the seats are gone, and they throw you the keys, and like, congratulations, yours. That's yours. It's like, well, what the fuck? And then, and then society wants to look at people that are in debt from schooling and stuff and treat them like shit and make them feel bad about it. And it's like, no, society made it that way.
Yeah.
The only people we can blame is ourselves. We made that an okay standard. But initially I wanted to really, really go to Joe Kubert's school. If you're not familiar with Joe Kubert is another badass comic book artist who slowly leaked himself out into more fine art, just like Frank Frazetta, another big influence on me.
Man, I see so much of his work.
Dude,
oh, my goodness.
You talk about a guy that has influenced culture not even just American culture, world culture. That's Frank Frazetta.
Like how much like fantasy sci-fi looks like pick it out of a pile, one of his pieces of artwork, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing about that guy was he never even wanted to do that. He got pulled into it by a colleague who bit off more than he could chew and needed help so he could make deadlines. And Frank was just killing it. And his colleague was like, dude, why are you making these silly comic drawings?
Right.
You're slaying it on this.
Right.
and it was kind of the same thing with him as it was with me with tattooing. He never really wanted to get into it. He just got pulled into it, realized he was good at it, and realized the opportunities. And that was my thing, man. When I realized there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to go to college successfully or an art technical school successfully and be able to complete it financially, it kind of broke me down a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a big blow.
Yeah, it hurt my feelings a little bit. And for years, I worked bullshit jobs, mainly in factories. And I've always been the kind of guy I've always had this strong belief: if you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, then who cares? Leave people alone. And I always hated it when people dictated other people's lives. Like, they're not hurting you or your family or their own.
Right.
So who cares? Let them do their thing. And the factory life is not like that, man. It's about as close to communism as you can get. Like, they're always telling you every day you're expendable, you're not worth shit, and all this other stuff.
There's 20 people lined up outside this door that do your job right now.
Yeah, whether it's true or not. And, I hated it the entire time. I did that for almost like 6.5 years, dude. And worked at different factories over that time period. But I had a friend, his uncle had a tattoo shop in Athens. And we used to go out there and hang out. And that's actually where I met Sean the first time. And I was out there just doodling one day, and he had made a comment like, maybe you should think about like getting into this. You know, what else you doing in your life?
It's like, psst, you ever thought about it?
Yeah. And you know, I was like, at the time, I just kind of was like, whatever, dude. You know, who cares? You know, you think you're knowledgeable, but you're not. You know, I was young. I was naive. I was dumb as hell. Like all 18, 19-year-olds, regardless if you think you're the shit or not, you're in reality, you are shit. You know what I mean? Like, you have no possessions, no knowledge, no experience, but for some reason,
you're just lucky enough to be here.
Yeah, for some reason, as humans, we think, you know, oh, I made it this far, the big 18, you know, like, whatever.
Go to jail with the big boys now.
Yeah. Play the big boy games. Yeah, and that was the first time I had somebody whisper in my ear, you know, maybe you should look into this. And I worked at factories a little bit longer after that. And then one day, man, I worked for this particular company, and I hated them. I hated them so much because they were always big about telling you they could never give you raises or more hours, but then they would come and have the main honcho come in and brag about, oh, we made $10 billion this year. And it's like, fuck, you can't give me $2 more on my pay? Right. Are you kidding me?
But you're going to come down here and brag about the 8 figures the company made.
Yeah, man. And I got my first apprenticeship with a guy, Brian Jones, in Madisonville. He had a shop called Living Art. And I learned when I was going through it at the time, this goes back to being young and dumb. I thought I was just wasting time and spinning my wheels. But when I look back on it now, man, I learned a lot. And when I started taking my apprenticeship there, Sean had left the other shop and came to Brian's shop.
So now you have both these guys.
Now I have both these dudes. And Sean already knew kind of where I was at artistically. And Brian because he had had some issues with other apprentices in the past, which is a common thing. He didn't really take me fully serious, you know. And if it hadn't been for Sean, I probably would have never got that apprenticeship. And I remember the day that I called down there and was like, "Hey, I want to get an apprenticeship for tattooing." And
did they laugh?
Yeah, they totally laughed. They totally laughed at on the phone in my face, just like you're laughing, like belly laughing, like, "Oh, I bet you do, you fucking idiot." You know?
You sure? Yeah, you are.
I'm sure he held the phone to his chest. It's like another fucking dumbass, you know, sucker. And and I was like, "So could I come down and show you some art or whatever?" And he was like, "I guess if you want, you know, like." You better make it quick. I got shit to do. I'm a businessman. And I was like, okay, cool. So I remember getting in my little shitty-ass Skylark Buick and driving down there. And at the time, I didn't understand the purpose of a portfolio. Mm-hmm. So I come in there looking like a damn, like, snake oil salesman.
Your 3-ring binder and
and fucking guitars that I had painted designs on and wood burned and all this shit, man. And I'm just putting it in his front lobby, and he's just looking at me like, "What the fuck is this idiot doing?"
Like, you trying to move in? Like.
Yeah. Like, I thought this was an interview, not a, you know, a flea market. And so I show him all this stuff, and he's looking at it, and he's like, "Oh, you got some strength in several sections of art." And he kind of, looking back, now that I'm older, he was measuring me up, is what he was doing. He wasn't being an asshole. He wasn't trying to hold me back and stifle me. He was just measuring me up. How serious is this guy? Mm-hmm. Is he really going to put forth the effort, you know? And at first, he wasn't going to have nothing to do with me. And years later, like, friends and homies do, you know, and you're just talking to somebody. Me and Sean were just hanging out one day, and we were just talking, and I remembered that moment, and I was telling him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, man, like, you weren't going to get an apprenticeship." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, dude." He was like, he wasn't going to give you one, or wasn't, like, super serious about giving you one anyways. And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, man." He was like, had I not been there and told him that I remembered seeing you and seeing you doodle and stuff back then, he was like, he probably wouldn't have even took you on, you know?
Right.
And so that happened, and I would go down there, man. I was working at a factory, dude, getting up at 5:30 in the morning, working till like 3:30, something like that. And then I'd go home, take a quick shower, drive over there, and hang out till like 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that, and do it all over again, man.
Oh, no.
And that did a lot for me, though, proving to those guys, like, this kid really wants this. And I was going through some stuff in my life, too, and that was a big part of it. It wasn't all work ethic. I don't want people thinking, like, man, that guy is just, like, fucking, he's on his way to something great.
Right.
No. I had some heavy shit going on in my life, and it helped clear my head. It was a little bit of a breather from reality. It's a different world.
Being able to escape to somewhere where expression was nice and welcome.
100%, dude, 100%. And being around fellow artists and stuff who had went through it themselves or been through worse, it really helped. Because not only did I have people like who understood and took it serious, but they made it out on the other end okay, and it made me feel good about it.
Yeah, because you saw a lot of the Arizona.
Exactly. And that went on for, I don't know, almost a year or so. And then, like a dummy, being young and dumb, got too cocky, too big for my britches, and me and him went our separate ways or whatever. And about a year went by that I didn't do anything. I got down and out again, man. And like I said, I had personal stuff going on anyways, and that beat me down some, and I just kind of didn't have anything to do with art for almost a year, year and a half. Didn't draw, didn't paint, nothing.
That pains me to hear.
Yeah, it hurts looking back on it, because I would just sit at the house and just dick around, man, or go to work. That was my life. And Sean called me up one day. I was like, "Hey, man, how you doing? What's going on?" And I kind of told him what was up, and he was like, "Well, dude, I got a friend that's got a shop up in Knoxville. You should hit him up." And I was like, "I don't know, dude. I don't know." So this went on for about a week. He would call me every day when he knew I was off work.
Do the thing.
Yeah, and like a father figure, he was like pushing me into it. Like, you need to fucking do this.
Hey, did you call that guy today?
Yeah, don't make me come down there and bust your ass and make you do it, you know, that kind of thing. And one day he called me, man. I was having a bad day. The factory I worked for had been giving me issues. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll go now. I wasn't even close to the fucking place, man. I was probably an hour and a half away. And I was like, fuck it. I remember.
I'll drive down there right
now. I remember fucking turning around in the middle of the road and just going back and being mad as hell. Had my shit together. Went and talked to dude. And, yeah. Worked there for a while. Not just as an apprentice, but as like a half-time and full-time artist there. Well, I wouldn't even call it an artist as far as being so young and green in it. Like, just a student. That's a better term, a student. Because when you're an apprentice, you are not an artist. There's a day and night.
Yeah.
And I will argue that till I die.
There's a hierarchy to it.
Yeah.
A very clearly defined hierarchy.
Exactly, dude. And so I worked for that company or that business for another good 6 years or so. And did that, found some other opportunities, moved on and that kind of thing. And I've known Nick since we were knee high. We went to school together. We lived like a mile down the road from each other. We could walk to each other's homes. Our parents knew each other. And all through those years, me and him would like kind of reconnect every now and again and talk, shoot the shit. And yeah, one day he was like, "Man, I'm thinking about opening up my own shop." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah. You know any artists that I could trust that are
like, yeah, I know
good?"
a guy.
And I was like, "Yeah, I know somebody."
I know
and he
a
was
guy.
like, "Well, who?" He was like really interested. I remember him leaning over in his chair like,
as he does.
"Tell me more," you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, "You're looking at him." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Like, I feel stale in the position I'm in now. I need something to relight that fire. I need to be with a team that's going to keep helping me throw coal and logs in on this fire." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Cool. Well, I'll go talk to the other guys I've got involved in this, and then maybe we can all meet up." And it all worked out, and here I am at Sleeping Giant, you know. That's how that worked out. But, yeah, it was a long haul to get where I'm at now, you know. It is what it is. I mean, anything you want to really be into and really, really do it, you've got to make sacrifices and put in blood, sweat, and tears. And sometimes you got to make unnecessary sacrifices, you know.
Like a couple hours of sleep.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Dude, there's been many times. I don't do it much anymore because even though I'm only like 32, I just don't have that in me anymore to do it, you know? Like, I got a kid now and other priorities and stuff that I got to take care of, and I just can't be hanging out at the shop till 4 o'clock in the morning and then coming back at 12 in the evening and doing it all over.
Yeah.
It just don't work. Not for me anyways. But, yeah, man, that's, you know, it's just one of those things. If you really want it, you got to just go for it. You know, it goes back to what I was saying before. Don't be afraid, you know.
I mean, in the profession I'm in now, I found a couple a couple of weekends that required most of my time and attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
spending 14, 16 hours a day making sure somebody's race car that needs to get wrapped by
Totally.
Monday gets out the door is
Totally.
a thing that gets done.
Yeah,
And the job gets done.
Yep. And sometimes, man, those are the moments where all that time and experience and training gets involved. You find yourself in a situation where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to meet the deadline.
But here it is. The task has been laid upon me.
Yeah.
And I'm the only person this task is made for.
Yeah.
So here
and
we
you
go.
got two choices. You can either lay it out and just do it the best you can possibly do, or you can be straight up with people and just be like, hey, I don't think I'm the dude for you. I did it yesterday. I do it all the time, man. All the time. That was something I learned real early before I ever got into tattooing. As an artist, man, especially when you're first starting out and you struggle and you're looking for work because you don't want to do the normal 9 to 5, traditional stuff. And I took on a lot of stuff that I probably should have never, ever got involved with. And, I just brought that to the table with me when I got into tattooing. This is a business where you run into a lot of strong personalities.
You don't say.
Yeah. And they usually don't take no for an answer. And
because the money's in the other hand.
Yeah.
Ideas in one hand,
Yeah,
money's in the other.
and that's
like,
the thing.
hey,
They're
hey.
used to dealing with people that are like, as soon as you pull that wad of money out, eyes light up. And suddenly they're like, you know what? I don't always do this because I usually fuck it up. But I'll do it now.
This time for you.
Yeah, just for you and that big old stack of fucking money. But I learned real quick, like, that is not a way to be. Because everything you do, your name is attached to it. Mm-hmm. Unlike canvas work or things like that, with tattoos, man, people never hesitate. No matter how good the tattoo is or how bad it is, when somebody walks up to you and says, hey, man, where'd you get that tattoo?
You say it every time.
Yeah, every time. I got it from this artist at this shop. And either that person that asked you is either going to be like, that is rad, dude. That is killer. Do you have a card or how do I contact them? Or they're going to be like, holy shit.
Right, yeah.
We are never going there.
Reaction.
Yeah. And so I picked up on that real quick, and I just tell people, like, I'm not gonna desecrate your body with something that I'm not confident in. I'm not going to go out of my way to try and convince you that I'm the man, I can do it all.
Right.
Like, I started coining this phrase like a couple years ago. All I have is my word and my portfolio. And if you can't get behind that, then I can't help you.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist myself, I would very much rather tell somebody that job isn't in my wheelhouse than crank out something that I'm not happy with, that they have to live with forever.
Yep.
So definitely.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, too. As artists, we tend to we all have vices in general, but we, as artists, tend to get trapped in our heads and beat ourselves up and nitpick at the smallest fractions.
The harshest critic scenario, yeah.
And so if you see something or you get put in that position where you do it anyways and you see it go out the door, the whole time you're just thinking, man, I could have done that fucking better, or I should have told them to go and so. And you just, it'll bother you for a couple days, and then if you have families and things like that, this is the part where we get kind of selfish. We don't realize that we throw that burden onto our families, because they're with us more than anybody.
Yeah, and they just see it on your face.
Yeah. A lot of times you don't even have to say nothing, and they just look at you, and they're like,
what'd you do today?
Yeah, I guess that project didn't work out the way you wanted. Well, how'd you know?
When you came in the door, your shoulders were on the ground.
Yeah. What's with the long face? So, yeah, man, you just got to do things that are going to satisfy you and honor you and still fulfill what these people ask for. And the big thing, too, is remember, you didn't seek out their help. They came to you. They asked you for your help, for
And they could have asked
talent.
anybody else.
Yeah, they could. Millions of people in the world, billions of people, and they picked you out of all of them. That's the other part of art too, and more so with like the finances of art, trying to make money off of it. Is you got to remember that a lot of this stuff is based on luck. You're lucky that somebody took you serious. You're lucky that somebody showed you techniques that you didn't normally do or practice.
Would have been really hard to find out otherwise.
Yep. Especially if you came from a generation that's 30 years or older now. We didn't have all the resources. You couldn't jump on YouTube and just, oh shit, now I'm going to be a master musician in 2 days because I got this whole library of everything I ever need for free. It wasn't like that then. And you got to remember that you're lucky that those people sought you out, that they even came back, that they're spreading your name and telling people that you're doing cool art. It's all luck based. At any given time, people could quit muttering my name. And, I would have to go and get a normal job. I'm lucky I've got to do this for 11 years. It's insane because I look at some of these dudes, like my buddy Sean Harris, man. I'm pretty sure he told me one time he's only had like 1 or 2 jobs since he was like 16 or 17 years old.
That blows my mind.
And he got his first apprenticeship when he was like 16 or 17. And has done nothing but tattoos since then.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So like when you look at guys like that have invested 20 plus years or more,
their entire like adult
life.
professional life.
It kind of gives you a little more courage and a little more push to be like, well, this person helped me out and they confide in me and advise me and want me to do better. Well, if they can do it and they're there for me, surely I can do it too. I have all the tools I need, sometimes, you don't see things like that. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Damn it.
Yeah. I say that with freaking glasses on.
Me and you both.
Blind as shit.
Me and you both.
Yeah, so it is what it is, but I just think like a lot of us just beat ourselves down too much, and it shouldn't be that way.
I feel like sometimes that's the opposite of the flow state shenanigans, because it feels so great to be able to just let loose, and then all of a sudden you snap back too, and you're just like, dear God, that one line is way too fat. What the hell? Yeah. But 99.9% of this thing you did when you wasn't thinking about it is just amazing, and you're in love with it. And you look at it for that split second too long, and you're just, shit.
Oh, for sure, man. And I'll be honest, that's kind of the reason why I've been so hesitant to dabble with new electronic art mediums. I'm really, really fascinated by the idea of having a tablet and Procreate on it and having all these different brushes you can download and things and customize.
Oh, my boss is like a kid in a candy store right now, because he just like stepped out onto that bridge. And he was coming around the shop the other day. Look at this.
Yeah. Dude, it's the coolest thing ever, because like as a tattooer, it cuts your work in half, man, because now I don't have to bounce between resources on my phone and emailing that to my email so I can pull it up on a desktop, and then putting that on Photoshop, and then hand drawing shit.
I feel like there's something about being able to draw on top of the thing, like it's just straight to the screen.
Yeah, I like that it gives me the feeling that I still have a pencil or brush in my hand, and I'm still connected to that canvas. That's a big reason why I like doing what you would just consider traditional manual art, is I like knowing that I have full control over that. And I mean, let's face it, when you're making art, that's your envision of your world.
I mean, that point between your fingertips is the point that everything gets distilled from. Like,
not to get religious or anything, but you're God in this world that you're creating on the spot. Yeah. Anything goes.
I mean, is it really that religious if Bob Ross said it?
Dude, I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
That's another great influence, man. I remember being a kid and watching that dude on PBS.
Oh yeah.
I was real little, man, and just spent hours just glued to the TV with my
if
juice
you-
box.
If you grew up and you didn't see this,
Oh, yeah.
what were you doing
Yeah.
with your life as a
Yeah.
child not
Yeah.
watching Bob
Why,
Ross?
My question is, why didn't your parents love you enough to show you that?
Oh God, that's the better question. If your parents didn't show you Bob
Yeah,
Ross, you were
yeah,
not loved as a
yeah.
child.
Yeah, that's like never exposing children to ice cream. Like, what
Oh
the
my
hell's wrong
God.
with you?
You're 5. It's time for ice cream.
Yeah, you gotta try this shit. It's gonna blow your mind, kid.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
man. I could talk about art forever. I really could, because, like I said, it's enhanced my life in so many ways, and it's not just tattooing. It's not just canvas art. It's, like I said, it's food, it's dance, it's music, all of it, man. And it's out there, man. You can't deny it.
No, it's right in front of your face.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It's influenced everything, dude. Sometimes, all the time. Architecture.
Yeah.
It's a fucking art form, man. This building, some buildings are a lot more impressive than others, but it's the idea. Some fucking person sit down and premeditated all this.
They had that in their head, and then the next thing it came out of their fingers.
Yeah.
And now it's brick and mortar on the street downtown.
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. And people are using it and observing it, and yeah, man. Cars, there's artists that created
Oh
those.
man, I could talk about cars all day.
Yeah. Even the smallest thing is like jingles. There's some musician that came up with that jingle that you can't get out of your head, whether you like it or not.
And you've had it in your head for years.
Yeah. So
and those musicians, they do good.
it's like the old Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois. I remember that because I used to see it so much.
I swear, there's so many jingles I wish I could get out of my head. if I could pay money to get jingles out of my head, oh my God, I would do it. Here's a $5 bill for that to never cost my
It
mind.
might be a
the rest of my life.
lucrative business. That's like some Total Recall.
I was about to say, it sounds like some Total Recall shit. That's what that sounds like.
And next minute, you're out in Mars pulling big balls of metal out of your nose.
I need to create the atmosphere around Mars. Leave me to my work.
That movie's, the original, is fucking gnarly, man.
And you want to talk about some influence right there,
Dude? Yeah.
That dystopian future cyberpunk mix, neuromancer bullshit is something that I think movies from that area that pulled art like Frank Frazetta from the 70s.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And God, William Gibson, I think he created the steampunk genre.
Yeah.
Those guys right there for like the next 30 years set in motion everything that cinema was
And
doing.
then you've got dudes like guys like Robert Williams, who ran around with Ed Roth back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Ed Roth's responsible for the Rat Fink and the whole hot rod movement.
Man, in my line of work where I work with automobiles, but personally I have so much influence that you don't necessarily see directly in my work.
Yeah.
But oh my God, pinstriping and patina.
Have you ever seen pinstriping done in front of you?
Yeah.
Dude, it's the most insane fucking thing.
I know. How do you make so many lines that look just the
Symmetrical.
same? How?
And a lot of times it's not like they're doing like a little, like a
here's
5x12 or something. This motherfucker's a whole door panel.
Yeah, or a 48 by 36 hood or some crazy stuff like that.
And now I'm going to go on the other side without a stencil and match the motherfucker.
And you know what? I'm doing
and
it
it's
all
gonna
with
look
squirrel hairbrushes.
Yeah.
You're telling me you got squirrel fur on that
and
thing?
enamel
Yes, sir.
paint.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried using enamel paint? It's ridiculous.
I have MAC brushes and enamel paint at home. That's one of the mediums I'm trying to expand into, and which is why I asked that question to people. What are you trying to get into? And pinstriping is definitely the one thing that is like a directly distilled influence coming out of me because I've seen so much of it. I just want to do it.
They call that they've coined a phrase for that. They call it custom culture. And
with the case.
Yeah. And so like they basically it's all like hot rod influence and that kind of thing. And man, here recently in the past like 2 or 3 years, it's really, really started to like surface up. It's not a hidden thing. It's kind of like tattooing was in the beginning. Tattooing was like a hush hush thing. We don't talk about that, but we know it's there and it's fucking cool.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of the same thing with that. And I think that is so cool, man, because I follow so many people on social media and YouTube that are doing stuff like that are so cool. Um, you know?
I mean, not even down from like the physical things itself, but even when it comes down to paint schemes and color palettes and everything,
dude.
the whole gamut of
Some
expression
of the color
inside the
combinations they do, if you saw them laid out in like just the paint cans, you'd been like,
Now that
"There's
looks-
no way
there's-
that's,
yeah, no
that's
way.
gonna look like shit."
Well, and then when it comes down to finishes and patterns, you've got like lowriders and Latin culture from the 70s and early 80s where everything was gold and silver and filigree and sparkle and oh my god, it's like visual candy on a car.
Oh yeah,
and
dude, 100%. The more chrome you can slap on it, the better it's gonna be.
You mean to tell me you got a doily on your roof?
Right? Yeah,
you got lace on the fenders inside those three crazy neon colored panels with all the sparkle.
He replaced the exhaust with stacks.
Yeah,
you know. Come on.
You got your name cut out in metal over the third brake light? Oh, my God.
And that's another thing, too, man. I remember being a kid and going into the grocery store with my mom. And she would always tell me, like, you can either come with me and do grocery shopping or you can hang out at the magazine rack.
Yeah, and read the magazines.
Yeah, and I used to pick up more than haps, more times than I can count. I would usually always go for the lowrider magazines, and it had nothing to do with the vehicles or the women inside it.
And which there were plenty of.
Yeah, back in the day, I don't know if they still do this or not. I haven't looked at one of those magazines in forever, man. But back in the day, they used to have in the very back of the magazine, it was a section where these artists, tattoo artists, people in prison,
send stuff in, submissions.
Yeah. And so like the last like 5-10 pages would be nothing but artwork, and that's what I'd do. I'd go grab them and I'd go right to the back, man, and I'd look at it, and I was just blown away. And a lot of it was like like Latin American type art, and it was something different. It was something I wasn't exposed to, you know. Yeah. Living in redneck Tennessee, you know, like all I knew
that
was
literally is the only place you're gonna get.
Yeah,
there.
all I knew was John Deere and Conway Tweedy, you know, like, and then seeing that, man, it just blew my mind. Like, what is this? How'd they do that? Like, that pencil shading is so smooth; it's like silk, you know, and that influenced me in tattooing a little bit too. Well, not even just a little bit, a lot. I always like looking at that stuff, man. It's just so cool because it's a different walk in life, man. It's refreshing.
When you get exposed to a whole genre of something you've never seen or never knew existed, and you just, you know, open your eyes and let it just smack you in the face. And you just pick out all the things that you're familiar with inside that, and all of a sudden it becomes way more relatable.
Yeah, dude. And that's another thing, too. One of my favorite things to do, and me and Ben Frazier used to do this all the time. Who was a fellow tattooer. We used to do this thing where we would get like a canvas or some art paper, and we would do a thing where I would draw a shape or just start drawing randomness. We'd never have a topic. We'd just start drawing random, and we would time each other. We'd usually give each other anywhere between like 2 to 3 minutes apiece. And then when your time was up, you slid it over to the other person. They picked up the pencil and did it, and then you just keep going back and forth till you're both done with it or satisfied.
If I touch it again, I'll screw it up.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is you can make art that looks like one person did it, but without the other brain, you'll never be able to get close to it. You know, that's the craziest thing ever.
The combination, the combination and the collaborative effort.
Yeah, if you've never done that, or anybody listening has never done that, I highly suggest you do that, because not only do you learn a lot about yourself, but watching and observing a fellow artist, you learn a lot that way too. And
especially when you're working on something that both of you had touched.
Yeah, and neither of you know where it's going to go.
Right.
You know? And, dude, it's some of the coolest stuff, and I've learned a lot from it. because that artist is right there, and you can just straight up ask them, "Whoa, man,
The hell
how'd
was
you
that?"
do that? Like, what was the idea behind that? Well, I do this and this and this. Really? I've never even heard anybody talk about that.
Like, you shitting me right now?
Yeah, and you learn a lot, man. You educate yourself, and so do they. It's pretty awesome, man. It is a really cool exercise to do, and I don't even know how me and him came up with that, because we were just really, it was boredom. We were working at the same shop one day, and was bored as hell.
You just slide him a piece of paper.
Yeah, man. It was like about this time of the year in December, when it kind of slows down dramatically for tattooing in most places.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there killing time, listening to the clock tick away, and just started doing it. I was like, "Hey, man, you want to draw some stuff?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, what if we hold each other back a little bit?" And he was like time each other? And I was like, that works. That's not necessarily what I thought, but that works. And we just did it, and we've done that a couple times. And man, sometimes you get some boogers out of it. Every now and again, you'll get a couple diamonds, man.
Yeah.
And those diamonds, study those. Understand why they're diamonds. You got to break that stuff down to a science, really, because that's the only way you're going to grow.
Yeah, if you're not aware of what you're doing at some point in the process.
Yeah.
You can't learn from it if you can't look back and dissect it a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's the point of doing it if you're not willing to go back and understand?
Right.
Like, you're just wasting time, valuable time.
Yeah. If you can't repeat it, or attempt something similar in the future, then you've wasted some of the value of the thing you just created.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other person just looks at you like, "You fucking asshole." Like,
why did you do it? You drew this and then handed it back to me.
Got me slaving away, and you don't even care.
You just look at him, hand a piece of paper. Why did you make this so difficult?
Yeah, for sure.
You really put me up shit creek.
Sure. I like all kinds of art, though, man. I don't just like comic books and stuff like that. I love all kinds of art, man. I'm a big animation fan. Not even necessarily quote unquote anime. I like a lot of stuff. Like Looney Tunes and Disney and 90s cartoons and stuff like that, man. I love it, because there's, back in the day, now it's mostly all digital, but back in the day, man, you had like 100 people crammed into a little room, and they would draw something out on some vellum, pass it to the next guy. That guy would line it out, pass it to the next man or woman, and they would put paint on it and color it up, and then another person would do the background. Or sometimes like with the old He-Man stuff, I actually got to meet a couple of those dudes that were responsible for that at Fanboy like 2 or 3 years ago.
Nice. And
dude, it was so cool and very humbling, because I remember watching those old reruns and stuff and just being blown away. Like, they made their art move, and getting older and understanding how they did it, and it was just like, holy shit, they're moving paintings. And those dudes were super cool to me, and they told me a lot of things and inspired me. And the only thing I got bummed out was I was already like nearly $300 in the hole while I was there, because I'd met like several people that I was just like over the moon about.
So you had to.
Yeah, and it was kind of saddening at the same time, but I get where they're coming from. When you're an artist, you can't always push your art for what it really should be, as far as price.
Yeah. And
man, they had old cell animation plus the backgrounds with them, so you got the whole frame. You got a whole frame, man, and they were like next to nothing. Ugh. I think the most one of them cost was like $200 or something, but other than that, most of them were like $50 and $60. And when I got there, I about threw up. I was just like, oh, if I'd known this, why didn't I start on this end of the room?
Right.
But I got to that same convention. I got to meet several older Disney animators too that were responsible for like Little Mermaid and Lady and the Tramp and the Rescue Rangers.
The Rescue Rangers.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I remember that show so much, or the movie rather. But yeah, man, all kinds of stuff, and they were all super cool to me, man. Super nice, and it's stuff like that, man. Like when you're another artist and you can reach out to, especially a younger artist, and they listen to you and they take the time, and you know they have that desire in their heart, man. That alone is fucking rewarding, man. It really is. Because I get people all the time asking me about apprenticeships, and a lot of times you can just look at people and tell, like, you're fucking wasting my time and yours. You don't want this. But occasionally I run across somebody where I'm like, you have a passion. It may not necessarily be tattooing, but you have an artistic passion.
Something's in there.
Something's in there. And a lot of times I have to break it to them and be like, you're pretty young. Why don't you get a little more experience, get a little more age on you? And I'm not saying like come back when you're fucking 40,
right? But
like come back in a year or two, because I bet your attitude may change, and you might go someplace. You might not have to go through this avenue, and that's the thing, man. Like sometimes people just need a push, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
And usually the person giving them that little push
is the person they least expected.
Yeah. Yeah. and 9 times out of 10, they don't even know that they did that.
Right.
You know, they just thought they were just having a conversation or trying to shoo somebody out the door. Right. You know, whatever.
Yeah, that's it. The unlikely scenarios that come through in those moments a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works out.
It is. You never know, man. Never, ever know.
Well, do you have any work in progress right now? Do you have any projects you're sitting on? Anything you're trying to start?
I got all kinds of stuff, man. All kinds of stuff. I got shit laying around all over the house. I had this skateboard that me and a couple other guys had bought some blanks, and we had a fellow friend who works in the automotive department. He's an airbrusher, and he loves metal flake, man. He's all about it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, I was like, well, while you guys are getting like basic paint jobs and stuff, I'm gonna see if dude will just go hog wild
on the skateboard.
Yeah, on a skateboard. And I'm going to just kind of show him how I want it laid out on here. It wasn't anything fancy. I just wanted it where it would frame out so I could put something in the center of the board.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a cool flake board. So we get it done and everything, and I didn't take in consideration, and I've worked with enamel paints in the past, but not enough to, like, you know, at the drop of a hat be like, oh, well, you can't do this and this because of that.
Right.
You know, and I got too excited about it. That was the big thing. I got too excited.
You just jumped in.
Yeah, just went in head first, and yeah, I didn't realize there were landmines everywhere. And so yeah, that took me a hot minute to figure out, like, how in the hell am I going to get the design I want to put on there. And I've had that board for about a year, and finally one day it just dawned on me. I was like, fuck it, tape it off, build some borders, and then just put some gesso on that motherfucker. Yep. and lay it out with whatever medium you want. And it's worked so far. So I'm thinking about, like, once I get that laid out, just hitting it with some enamel, like they put, not enamel, but like a clear coat for like canvas and stuff like that. You can get them in rattle cans now. And just hitting it with that afterwards. Because I'm afraid if I put like an automotive clear coat on it, it's going to have a chemical reaction not only with the paint, but with the gesso too. Because when gesso hardens, it's really grainy. It's kind of like drywall. Like, it doesn't take much to peel it up or scrape it. So I'm afraid it might have a chemical reaction. But I've about got it laid out. It's pretty cool. It's very tattooy. I don't know really. I don't have any like plans to sell it or anything. I've thought about a few people that have helped me out through the years or have businesses and they like collecting art. I've thought about like throwing it their way and just being like, thanks for being a cool homie and being supportive, you know.
Yeah.
Because that alone is something I think about all the time. I don't think, for me as an artist, I don't think I thank enough people, whether it's past, present, or future. Like, thanks for supporting me. Thanks for being there. You didn't have to give me your money.
Yeah.
You know, like,
sometimes I'll, if I've had a piece laying around for a minute, or if I just finished something, or anything in between, and I look at it and I'm just like, you know what? So-and-so would really like that.
Yeah.
And if that crosses my mind, I try to do everything I can to then execute.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason I should derail that thought.
No.
If I feel like somebody needs this thing and I've got it just right here and I feel like they would really appreciate it, I'm gonna try and give it to them.
I was told one time to not be so selfish with my art. And when I first heard that, it kind of pissed me off.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by that, asshole? And
why do you have it all stacked in your house in the corner?
Exactly. But when I really thought about it, it made sense. It made a lot of sense, you know. It's a really, really bad habit of mine, and I'm kind of trying to like ease into it and get over being afraid to post things, especially online, whether it's tattoos, drawings, whatever, you know. Well, not necessarily tattoos, but tattoo designs.
Yeah.
So I'm always worried about, you know, somebody stealing the stuff. But I've realized that, you know, this is the digital age. It ain't going to get any better. And so what if somebody steals it? Doesn't necessarily mean they can do it like you do.
Right, because they're not going to get a Jake Mincey tattoo from
exactly.
that picture you drew on the internet.
Exactly, because every artist, no matter what their forte is, they all have their own separate vision. And my vision is dramatically different from yours and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And even though we're both good at what we do, it's going to be radically different. You know what I mean?
Because you're not you and I'm
exactly.
And I'm me and you're not
exactly.
me.
Your personality is encompassed in your work. And that's just how it is, plain and simple, man. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm getting more comfortable with it, man. I just recently posted some designs and stuff on my Instagram and put up some work that I've thought I could sell or something like that, or tired of seeing it sit around and collect dust and not be enjoyed by other onlookers and things like that. And I've posted those on my Instagram and stuff like that. I've got this really cool. I need to get off my ass and get together because I know as soon as I post it, whether it's for sale or not, people of our age are gonna lose their shit. So you remember the old '90s cartoon Ren and Stimpy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course you did.
Yeah.
You know? That cartoon like brought so much to the table. Like it was the first like cartoon to really have some heavy innuendos and just be straight up gross and grotesque.
Oh, dude, the still frames.
Yeah,
still frames.
Yeah. And dude, like, so I got this idea one day. I was like, I want to do a Ren and Stimpy painting, and I was like, but how do I go about it? How do I keep the idea and the iconic imagery from that and still put me in it? And it took me a little while to come up with an idea, but I thought, well, you know, I nerd out when I can do detail stuff. I just do. I don't know why. It's just a thing, man. And I thought, well, there it is. That's how you can combine the two. And so I've started on a Ren. I haven't finished the Ren, but I got Stimpy together, and dude, it's just like so cool, man. Like it's just he's all covered in like sores and like I based it off the episode where like Stimpy's going through puberty And like because Stimpy's a cat and Ren's a dog, so Ren's having this allergic reaction to him because of the hair and shit, and like Stimpy's like got this abnormally elongated spine, and it's like all sticking through his back and stuff. So I based it on that.
Like a werewolf transformation.
Yeah,
scene.
yeah. So he's like got this big grin on his face, and there's drool coming out, and he's missing like a tooth, and got snot coming out of his big blue nose and stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just me letting life get the best of me. That's why it went on the back burner, man, because I just started those right before the COVID thing, man. And then right after that, I didn't get to work for two and a half months. And I was just like, fuck, man. And it got to a point where I couldn't push my art anymore because people were afraid to spend money, and rightfully so. I'm not upset with them because I did the same thing. I tried to support fellow artists.
If I ain't buying toilet paper, I ain't buying nothing right now.
No doubt. No doubt. Because apparently motherfuckers thought they could just like eat that shit and survive on it. Does anybody know, like, does COVID just make you shit your brains out? Is that?
I think that's it.
Is that it?
I think that's it. So that we got there's a couple more questions I want to get through. We're almost at the end of this thing. What is the scene around right now? What of it are you experiencing? What of it? What good of it have you seen come, and that sort of thing?
Well, as far as the scene goes, I think right now, art in all its forms, like I've said 9 million times so far, I think that there's going to be an artistic revolution. And the only reason I believe that is because there's too much going on in the world in general. Not just our homeland of America. It's in the world in general. And there is no way that people are going to be able to express themselves just solely through word. It'll be like the Renaissance. You know what I mean? It's just bound to grow. And there are some kids out there, and I call them kids. They're like middle-aged adults. But me being an old man, there's some cats out there that are not discovered yet and are slowly creeping through the cracks and nooks to get to the masses. And dude, once they do, it's going to be on.
Oh, you can't stop it at that point.
No, it's going to be on, man. And it's happening with music. It's happening with art. It's happening with food. Dude, it's there. And I think it's going to be a great thing, man. But I also think it's going to make, not only will it bring and bond fellow man together, but it's going to make everybody look at the world differently. I really do, because all the secrets are out. And now they're going to be pushed in everybody's face in a very graphic, artsy way. And you can't ignore it.
Can I tell you something that I'm really looking forward to?
Go for it.
I really want to hand somebody a Jeffrey Epstein Valentine's Day card. I really see. I've seen Photoshopped ones on the internet, but like that's only so cool.
Yeah.
Like, this is never a thing that could have existed before, and now that the world is the way it is, that it's a thing that
that's what I'm getting at, man. Is like you can call it whatever you want. You can call it propaganda, whatever. But I think most of the people in the world right now are already at their wits' end. And they're tired of the bullshit. They're tired of hearing the fucking lies and being told what these people of power think we want to hear. And now people are speaking up. And hey, man, it's been proven many times throughout the history of man. If people ain't gonna listen, I'll paint the shit on a fucking wall and I'll make you see it.
Yeah, you're going to see it.
It reminds me of that iconic scene out of Monty Python when the Romans take over. And I forget what they write on the wall, but it's like something to the effect of like Romans suck ass or something. And they're like, what the fuck? Who does this? And the dude's standing there with the brush, like literally caught red-handed. And he's like,
It's us, sir.
Yeah. Dude, that's what's going to happen, man. That's what's going to happen, especially in some of these more artsy places. Like, I could totally see, like, Asheville just blowing up, man, with that kind of stuff. Because it's a fucking artsy-fartsy place. I don't know if you've been there lately, but it's.
I haven't actually been there this calendar year. But,
Yeah.
But I frequent the spot when I can.
I went right at the beginning of the year. Me and my girlfriend took a like a little mini vacation, and we there was like a bread and breakfast thing there, and we rented out a room or whatever.
Nice.
And that was the first time I'd ever been.
Oh, dude, Asheville's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I mean, it's a little on the pricey side. It's definitely.
Yeah, but if you know where to look, they've got some of the nicest stuff you're gonna find.
Yeah, that's true.
Shout
that's
out
true.
Appalachian Vintner for being the best package store in the world.
and I don't know if you know who Mike Chambers is, badass tattooer.
Yeah.
He's got a shop out there now.
Hey.
Yeah, and it's nice, man. It's really, really nice. So that's cool too. So, once again, there you are, Where there's a will, there's a way. And art has always been there for people and always made people feel comfortable. And unfortunately, it's made just as many people uncomfortable.
And that's good, though.
It is good because, man, I've learned the older I've gotten, if you really want to put somebody in their place, just tell them the truth. Just tell them the truth. God's honest truth, man.
And I feel like sometimes you being the man with the paintbrush in the hand, metaphorically, you are the person that has to tell the people the things they don't want to hear sometimes.
Yep. It's our duty as artists.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
To be the mirror for society.
That's exactly it, man. And if you can ignore it all you want, but it's always going to be relevant to what you do and the other artists you surround yourself with. And that's the other thing too, man, is like, I am so glad that for the majority of artists out there, especially right now, it is not a competition. We're all trying to help each other, and build each other up, and collaborate.
Well, that's why I'm sitting here trying to do this. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's why I didn't hesitate when you were like, "Hey, man, you want to do this? Fuck yeah, I want to do this. We need to do this.
Yeah.
The time is now." It's like that Megadeth song, Welcome to Tomorrow.
Which you had playing when I walked in here.
Oh, dude, I'm a huge Megadeth fan. For the same reason, though, it goes back to that whole art pushing the truth in your face. One of the things I love about Megadeth and Dave Mustaine is the fact that it is political and it's not biased. It's merely taking up for the underdog, the people like me and you, and just laying the truth out. And either you like it or you don't.
Yeah, and that's all there is to it.
And that's what I always liked about that band. And that's why I continue to listen to them, man. It is what it is, dude, if you can't handle the truth, then don't ask.
Right? Yeah, don't ask.
Yeah, and don't be going around fucking shit up either. That's my other thing is like, you don't want people to know what you're doing or the truth of what you've done. Don't fuck shit up. Don't fuck with people.
Yeah.
Like
stay a secret if you're trying to stay a secret.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem with the world today, man. Like, humans have held these people of power and money as idols for so long, and they've went out of their way to do nothing but make the simple task of living a normal, comfortable life in the world that we have. They've made it so hard to do the simplest things is like eat, sleep, and just survive. Like, why is it got to be so complicated? I get why we have certain laws and things like that, but why the fuck are you going to go out of your way and tell a person, well, you're not good enough to get this medical, treatment because you're not of a higher standard in society.
Right. Yeah,
go fuck off, man. Like, eat shit.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right. So, last question here. Who are some people you would like to see in a format here, in a
Quote,
format
unquote.
like this? What folks from around town would you like to hear like this?
Just anybody as far as art?
Yeah. What artists would you like to have in this format?
Man. I think some guys like Willie P, man. Badass glass blower.
Yeah.
Does some really good work. And he's a super nice guy, man. I've tattooed him twice, I think.
I think I've seen those tattoos.
Yeah,
too.
I did like a little Sherlock that was a silhouette, and then I did his logo.
Yeah, you did.
On his lower arm. he's a super nice guy, man, and very knowledgeable in his department. Dude, Ben Fraser, like I was saying before, not only is he a tattooer, he's a fine artist too. Has a long comic book background.
Yeah, he and I have had some good chats when I've been in his chair.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I've known that dude forever. Man, I mean, Rob Johnson, really good artsy fartsy dude. That's another good one. Me and that guy, I didn't really know him until I started working with him, and we just like connected, man. And that dude, he's one of those guys, like, you'll be racking your brain about something and be like, holy shit, I'm never going to figure this out. And he'll just walk by with a cup of coffee and be like, you should put a line right there and throw this cream on it. And you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Hey, don't walk off, come back.
Yeah, get back here.
Like,
say that again.
And he's just pouring with ideas, man. Like, I loved making flash sheets with him. He was so creative. And he's just one of those dudes that, like, never took it for granted, I don't think. Like, because he's when he shoots them at you, you can tell he's not being arrogant or trying to one-up you. He's just doing his thing.
Hey, it would be cool if you did this.
Yeah. And oh, shit, that's a great idea. Man, I was trying to think of maybe some other cats. Man, there's so many people I could think of. That's just a few, you know. How about that Thomas guy?
Oh, no,
Can we get that Thomas guy
stop.
on here? You guys hear him in the background saying stop?
It's so funny. I was over at Nick's the other day, and he and I sat down and did this, and you know, it's so weird for me to catch compliments because it's just like, oh man, no, stop, because I'm just out here trying to highlight people. I ain't trying to catch no compliments.
Nah, man, that's part of it, dude. Because like I said, things like this generally take another artist to say, you know what would be really cool, and then they go and seek it out. So, like, you're doing your part.
This is something that I don't get enough of in my life, and I feel like a lot of people like us have been deprived of, especially in the calendar year of 2020 in its entirety.
That, and when you look at history in general, even when we were being brought up and raised and things like that, art's always the thing that, like, kind of gets pushed down.
Well, the tangibility of it, or the outcome of it, the uncertainty of the outcome, and the intangibleness of it itself,
and resources.
Yeah, it somehow those aspects of it make it slightly more taboo than learning, you know, hard skills and, you know, more tangible.
100%, man.
But it's no less important.
No,
it's just sometimes often sidelined, and that's sad.
And like we were talking about earlier too, it's just weird how it always gets pushed to the side. But it's everywhere. It influences everything.
Yeah.
Everything in our lives is influenced by art. Some artsy motherfucker was like, hey, what if we put these bristles in this, like, weird shaped mirror thing I made?
Yeah.
Oh, and now we got a hairbrush.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Like, who knows?
Yeah, so, like, all kinds of crazy stuff. But, yeah, man, I'm happy you did it. And I hope you are successful with this, and I hope you find a shit ton more people, because I think it'd be so cool.
I need to get some more microphones so we can have more than two people talking.
Do like a group thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would definitely like to sit down and have at least 2 or 3 other people on the other side of this
that'd
conversation
be dope,
to have, you know, a more wide array of artistic opinions to have in this conversation. But today's conversation has been super duper fun. And I appreciate your time and energy helping me make this happen.
Yeah, no problem, man.
And Jake Mincey, tell people where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook if you put in Snake Mincey, Mincey. That usually brings me up, and you can contact me that way, see my art and all that good jazz. Or you can stop by the shop. Well, not anymore, sorry. I lied. That was in the past. We don't do that
You can
anymore.
make an appointment.
Yeah, you can make an appointment with me at Sleeping Giant on North Broadway, Knoxville, Tennessee. I'd be happy to hang out with you and make some art and do all that good jazz. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jake.
No problem. Thank you.
That was the show. I hope you enjoyed. All the relevant social media and website links will be in the episode description for the featured artist today. And if you yourself or know an artist that you would like to be or see on the platform, shoot me an email. It'll be listed somewhere on here. I'll try to make it plainly evident for you. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.